Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello?
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Am I
Hi.
audible? Hi.
Yes, you are. Did you want to share your screen?
Yeah. Just figuring out how.
So we have 7 waiting. Should I let them in or do you want to get set up first?
Just 2 minutes.
Sure.
So I had a question. I have not muted the videos that I have in my slides. So is that audible through the screen if I share it?
I don't know. I think it depends on how you're doing audio, and
Okay.
you want to try playing one?
Yeah.
Well, share your screen first. Let's do that first. Make sure that works.
Are you able to see it?
No.
Oh. Oh, it says host disabled participants screen sharing.
All right, let me check. I thought I had said we can. Okay, go ahead. Okay, I can see it now.
Okay. Is this audible?
No.
Um,
Is that okay or is it not okay?
yeah, I mean, I don't want it to be audible because there are some unnecessary sounds.
Okay. So I think you're all right.
Okay.
And do you want to play that or do you want to just leave it in this mode?
Yeah, I'll play.
Okay,
All right.
so I'll let people in now.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I
Hello.
think since we're a little delayed, we'll just go ahead and get started. Take it away, Akshatha.
All right. So I'm so glad to have this session, and yeah, to start with, so this is about setting up uh, an environment where we can have an ecosystem out of it. So usually, in workshops that I've taken in most extremely rural, tribal, and remote areas, where science outreach is extremely low or nil, it becomes a little difficult for these people to grasp science at one stretch. So what I do is take it in multidisciplinary approach, and usually involve correlating it with another subject or in a storyline or through storytelling approach. So here, what I'm trying to do is compare the making of a birth of a civilization, of a human civilization, to that of a birth of micro ecosystem. So let's first see what a micro ecosystem would possibly have. So here we have is, organic matter from like waste, residue, and metabolites from plants, animals, and microbes. And then you have these bacteria and fungi that feed on these guys. So in this case, if I have to talk in terms of human civilization, the first settlers of in a civilization are those who that go in search of natural resources. You need water source, you need vegetation, you need fertile land so that you can grow crops on. So that's what these bacteria and fungi are like. They are like farmers. They go and feed on these organic matter. They use this as the natural resource. And then you have protozoa. So these feed on the bacteria. There are nematodes that feed on fungi and bacteria. And then you have smaller arthropods or micro arthropods that feed on these small nematodes as well as fungi and bacteria. And there are bigger arthropods that feed on bigger nematodes and other nematodes and uh, uh, other organisms. And then it goes on a higher level to birds and animals. So in this, in my exploration over here, what I try to do is I set up a natural environment for them. So I set up the organic matter and have the new settlers, that is the fungi and bacteria. So we shall see if we actually, are able to have a successful micro ecosystem over here. So this is the day one, wherein I put in fruit waste. It was the mango season, so I used mango peels and seeds mostly. And then I added dry leaves, twigs, straw, soil, and compost maker that had cellulolytic and lignolytic microbes. And that's where I intended to start from. So yeah, and in day 4, you have, you can see already microorganisms growing over here. So in the week 1, what does it take to establish a new civilization? These You have these, fungi and bacteria growing over here, and they slowly, in just about a week, you can see them, spread across uh, the compost. So in just by the end of the first week itself, I come across this protozoans, and I was actually quite surprised because I did not see so much moisture in the soil, and this I asked Sonali, who's also a Foldscope super user, if she could identify what these were exactly. So she said it possibly was dinoflagellate, and yeah, that's what it seemed like to me. And let's see how beautiful these are. So these protozoans actually feed on bacteria, but it's also said that the more protozoa you have, the lesser likely you have, nematodes there, and the more nematodes you have, less of protozoans you will probably have. And coming to the week 2, I had such a beautiful sight on my compost over here, and you can see, these guys are making a huge network. It looks like white fungal network, but in fact these are actinomycetes, which are fungal like bacteria. So they are like, the entrepreneurs, traders, and networking agents. That's what I call them, because they look at how beautifully they are able to network and spread across and they're able to establish themselves, and they decompose the organic matter very well. So uh, they are actually like, they grow up becoming like, you could say big corporates. uh, so you have a lot of these fungi as well that slowly the property of a fungus is to uh, grow like in huge network and decompose the material. And you have a few more that settle outside the territory. So this is outside the earthen pot over here, and which is very fibrous and cottony. It has cottony like structure. So what happens when these guys, when fungus and bacteria are spread across and they grow so big like corporates? You need someone to govern them, right? So that's when you come to the next level. You have what we call the nematodes, and they are like the local governors. So I also would like to take your attention to this picture. If you can see small balls over here, they seem to be eggs over here. So we'll probably talk about what they might be in the coming slides.
Someone asked a question.
Oh.
Said, did you close the lid on the pot the whole time?
It was closed with cloth, and I had made holes on the cloth so that it is aerated well. So it was mostly aerobic composting. And yeah, so it was very difficult to capture nematodes because they're so restless. So initially I had to like wait for the slide to be dehydrated completely and slow down their movement. And but it was so beautiful to see them move around. And yeah, so mostly the kind of nematodes that we have usually are the bacterial and fungal feeders, the root feeders, and the predatory and omnivorous kind. So what we can see here is mostly the bacterial and fungal type. And if these type increase, this fungal and bacterial feeders increase in number, there also probably it will be increase in predatory and omnivorous kind. So uh, so um, you can see here, you can call them happily dancing, or you can call political rivalry, whatever fits your story. So here out of like 4-5 drops of my sample, I could find a couple of nematodes, and this was out of 4 to 5 times of dilution that I did of the compost. So you can imagine in about almost 1,000 grams of compost, how many nematodes would probably be there. So to keep, this is a slow motion video that I had taken. It is really beautiful. So to keep these guys in check, you have, also one more thing that I wanted to mention is nematodes which feed on bacteria and fungi. They are not necessarily reducing the number of bacteria and fungi, but rather they actually help in the growth by, because you have these bacterial and fungal network growing, but you don't have any competitors. So it's more like you have these nematodes who feed on them, actually stimulate the growth of bacteria and fungi. So the next comes what we should call federal governors, which have a larger territory. So these are micro arthropods, and they are very tiny for the naked eye, but they measure from less than a millimeter to say 2 or 3 millimeters. And if you can see in this video, there are few microarthropods that are uh, walking over here. So, yeah, and so these microarthropods actually feed on nematodes, and they keep a check on them. So if you see here, they have like really tiny wings. So they don't really fly far, but it helps them in flight for short distances. It's kind of like a parachute. And yeah, towards the end of week 3, we have also these macro arthropods. They are pretty big, say half an inch or 1 inch. And the fun fact is that I have not come across a single adult arthropod that was inside the inside the compost. Whenever I saw it, it was mostly on the surface of the earthen pot, on the cloth that I had covered it with. So that's why I called these guys the military folks, which are on the border. And I think this is a type of a sow bug, or call it a pill bug. This is the dorsal view, has a very pretty pattern. And this is the ventral view. So remember I was asking you to look at those eggs in one of the previous slides. So that was like a week ago before this photo came out. And that was probably the eggs of millipedes. And you can see how these are like baby millipedes and not older ones that are actually inside the compost. So this is how they looked under Foldscope. Look at the pattern they have. From the head to their trunk, and they'll look almost the same, but just a bit darker as they grow older. This is a young millipede, and this on the right is an adult millipede. And you can see this is, these pictures are taken on the cloth that I had covered the composter with. So there's another arthropod over here, and so yeah, now what the next thing is, these are now eaten by birds, which are found outside my house. So what do we have here? By the end of week 3, we are actually able to have a complete ecosystem, a complete soil food web that we have here. And it was so amazing to see. In the beginning of, when I started this about a month ago, I really did not expect that I will be able to see almost every one of this, these organisms in the compost. And it was so beautiful to see from just, the new settlers that we call, and from that to growing a level higher and a higher. in just about 3 weeks. And that talks about ecosystem so much. We don't realize that how important the role of every organism here is in balancing the ecosystem. And from so I think even in science education, one of the most important aspect here is to understand about our living systems, our living environment, uh, our entire ecosystem that we have today. Uh, how we tend to disturb the environment through our uh, infrastructural projects and development projects. So it is really, really essential that we are educated about our ecosystem from micro to macro, to understand what the role of these every organism is, and to make sure that whatever decision we take is considering all these factors. Is we are not damaging ecosystem so much. At least try to mitigate them as much as possible. And the next thing, finally, I would like to focus on this part. That is, we talk about education being, we want the education to be inclusive. We want, every child in this world to be having access of quality education. But one of the most important part, that is science, is left out of this education because of the mindset that science is very sophisticated. It requires a lot of it consumes a lot of resources, it requires a lot of money. And because of this mindset, we usually keep science away from a lot of these communities that really deserve to have access to science. And by not including them, these communities, science is also falling behind a lot, because we are not able to tap into such a huge lot of diverse knowledge that they can contribute. So science for all is frugal science with frugal equipment. So I would just like to highlight that for these science explorations, uh, it was all these frugal items that I had used, from reusing packaging material as sample collection pouches, reusing Bisleri water bottle as sample storage. Uh, I really love paper slides over glass slides because they are so efficient. They have much space and they hold the sample so well. They have space for the live organisms to move around. And I washed them several times, even with soap water, but nothing happens. While the glass slides, I tend to break them off, and I've already broken many. So yeah, so the whole point is, let's make science frugal for uh, making it accessible to everyone. Yeah, and that's how I'd like to end it with.
All right, great.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. I really love seeing the development on that compost pile. Just boom, went the whole way. So there was a
Yeah.
question in the chat room.
Okay.
You want to just look at that and read those and answer?
Yeah.
I think the first one that you need to answer is, did you monitor the temperature?
No. There's yeah, I did not monitor the temperature. The temperature was, I had kept it outside the house, and it's monsoon, but it's not raining all the time, so it keeps varying from like sometimes from 30 like less than 30 degrees Celsius to 35 degrees Celsius. So, um, and it was aerobic composting that I did.
Another question was, did you use any stain for your samples, or was it just the straight?
No
So,
stains.
Christine, since we are so few people, maybe Akshata, if you unshare your slide, your screen, it's more fun if people want to just ask questions directly as well. That way we could make it much more informal as a conversation.
Yeah, I just
and
wanted
then
to
if
make
people
sure.
want, yeah, I think we
that
could make
people
sure we
type.
go through the sets of questions, but then after that, it would be valuable to turn that into a conversation. And if people could turn their videos on, that way there'll be a context of, because there are two aspects to this. One would be the talks, but also just people catching up with each other. Yeah, so we can go through the questions first.
So the next one was, Amy asked, I'm thinking that once you started, you took samples each week to see what would happen and saw the discoveries with the Foldscope.
Yeah. In fact, I saw like every once in a couple of days, and so I could see development each time, and it was really amazing. From it was, you have new settlers each time, and they grow in number. So yeah, and also even since there are many other science explorers here and educators here. If anyone would like to share, their frugal science experience of, some other materials that they possibly used in as an alternative to lab equipment or materials, I'd love to hear their inputs.
Do you have a question?
I wanted to say something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I really enjoyed this talk, Akshata. Especially as a science educator, I think this is a really good example of a ecosystem which we can actually use to teach in schools. Uh, I was actually making a module, Foldscope module on ecosystem, but now I was thinking, actually, I think this is a better way to make a module around this, because
That's
every house can actually have a compost pit or
right.
compost box, but you use the earthen pot, so then it becomes even easier. So I wanted
Right.
to actually, I asked, did you monitor temperature? Because I think there is a temperature variation which happens, and then there is a correlation between the kind of organisms you see
Yeah.
uh, with
But
temperature as well.
yeah, I think that also depends on the different processes of composting. Like in this, one thing was that I used this aerobic microbes, and probably because of that there was already a fixed process there, and if it would undergo anaerobic process, then probably it would be another process, of the temperature
Yeah.
rise.
Okay. So I also wanted to, a simple question, because I started composting, but then
Ah,
there was a lot of smell and
smell.
no smell,
Smell,
bad
Oh,
okay, okay.
odor. Yeah. So how did you like? If I want to again continue, how do I take care of that? Because I can't keep it outside.
As far as I know, usually that smell comes from anaerobic composting and not aerobic. So as long as the microbes have constant access to oxygen, I think it should be fine.
You were aerating it.
So one thing was I made sure the cloth had enough holes for oxygen to enter, and every couple of days I would stir it. So that uh, that oxygen would enter. But after I think I did that only for the first week or first 10 days. And after that, I slowly, I used to do only once in a week and I like gradually stopped doing that because I thought, now they have their own environment and ecosystem. I should not disturb them much. So
And you didn't moisten it, right? You said the whatever liquid showed up came on
yeah,
its own.
yeah, it was also monsoon, so probably I think it did not dry up uh, as I was also expecting. It's one possibility.
This might be a simple question, but I might have missed it at the start, but I was curious how you started your compost. Like, what exactly? How did you set up? If I wanted to replicate it at home, how exactly did you start it?
Okay, so I'll just share that part over here.
That was the first slide, I think. First or
I
second.
think I definitely missed that, so I appreciate you.
So yeah, so this is the earthen pot that I used, and it has an old cloth which has holes in it, and then so inside it I had put like I'd used fruit waste, and the fruit waste was mostly mango peels and mango seeds. This is the mango season, so I did not put a lot of them because I just wanted to explore around with the microbes more than actually having the compost. Um, so the proportion of the fruit waste was more like say 20 to 30% of fruit waste, and rest of it was the dry stuff, that is dry leaves, twigs, straw, soil, and the compost makers, the microbial inoculum.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, that's great.
So Akshata, I had a question for you. And I think depending on, I know you've moved different parts of the country now in your own life. Could you briefly talk a little bit about the time when you discovered Foldscope, and especially your work with rural kids in the younger age group? I think it would be fun for everybody here to both hear. I've heard different parts of the story, but I'm also just curious, what have you taken from that experience? If you were to articulate the phase,
Yeah.
from your fellowship, what are the key lessons? I think because you said something very important here, which is, of course, if you don't engage with the broadest groups of communities, science loses as well. And of course, they don't get access to it. But I'm just curious, what were those sets of experiences like? Is there a story that you have to tell from that time?
Yeah. And
you can give people background because people might not know about your fellowship. Yeah.
Right. In 2017, for like almost 1.5 years, I did this fellowship called SBI Youth for India Fellowship, and that was a rural development fellowship. So I was in the state of Rajasthan, placed in really remote areas where there are indigenous tribes there called Bhil tribes, and you have also various other sections of the community there. So they had their own style of living. They had a totally different culture and uh, a very laid back life, and you know they most of them, especially in one of the villages that I was working in, did not go to school much. The attendance rate percentage was hardly 20 to 30 percentage, and that too, most of them, the school did not function well, basically. So these whole school administration was really messed up. And but on the other hand, the lives of these people was uh, was like living in a parallel world. They have their own really small farms. They lived in a hill where they all had their really small houses, and they had really small farms, and they had uh, these cattle and goats that they would rely on. And uh, and culturally they had really different mythologies, strong beliefs of even if you call them indigenous knowledge, they had a lot of these different beliefs. It could be about some herbs, medicinal herbs that they would probably use uh, when in times of some kind of an accident or some kind of wound healing or any kind such as that. And uh, so you keep hearing these different uh, theories they have, or different stories they have, and you you're of course you have no idea, or you can't say that they are wrong or they're right. It's just different. So as long as they are not you know we say that we are having the ability of thinking rationally, but we don't enable that process. We don't introduce that process to them. We So there are a lot of these things that have been traditionally happening, but they do not really they are curious about, but they do not know how to go about it. So it's just ignored and they just let it go. So if they are included in the process, of understanding how it's happening. And also, I would like to give another an example. In Telangana, there have been, these villagers who found, an indigenous herb that was used to actually repel mosquitoes, and they made oil out of it. So earlier, people used to just, use the leaves or have those plants around. But these villagers who were probably better educated, and so who came to that better level, that they actually extracted oil from it, and they made oil out of it, and now they are actually selling them in the market. So that whole process of understanding the science behind their indigenous knowledge, to actually spreading that knowledge, sharing it, and everyone will be able to use that knowledge. So I think that is the whole point of science for all. That's, that's what.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing this.
Yeah.
I think, Srinivasan, did you have a question? You're muted.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm Srinivasan. So I'm asking it for my cousin. Okay, they are studying 7th standard and 12th standard in India. So yeah. Okay. The thing is, what is the procedure? How to start it? What is the kit that she's having? We would like to buy one. So is this a valid question or not? I'm not sure. Yeah, please help us with it. Yeah. So what is? I saw the kits. There are some deluxe kits and some scales. I'm not sure how to start. Yeah,
Manu,
I know
do you
where
want
to
to
buy.
answer
Yeah, I
that?
can answer that. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
there are several distributors in India currently. The one
Yeah.
closest to us is Gubby Labs. You can get a basic kit, and all you need is just the base Foldscope to begin, and that's where you could start.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as you start growing, you can acquire all kinds of materials around. I mean, I think many people who are on this call might have a better idea for what the time looks like. I know even on Amazon India or other places, you could find Foldscopes.
Yeah.
On a broader scale, it would be interesting that when you're thinking about introducing something, also keep in mind, as you engage with the community, that it would be very valuable for the students and the individuals you're thinking about, to have them engage with the broader community. Because I think one thing that reflects on all of Foldscope community is the fact that we all learn collectively. So of course you need tools. So Foldscope is only one part of this equation. The other part is this community. And so, this is a great example of just people just sharing what they care about. And it's done in an informal sense. So it's not part of oh, I have a homework to do. So it's very important, if you're introducing them to students and kids, to also introduce in a way where the philosophy and the spirit is captured. And I think there are, depending on which region you are in, there might be some Foldscope super users around you, and they might be able to engage more directly, for example. And I think
I know Rafiq.
The hope would be is that,
you know Rafiq?
Yeah, I guess, where are you sharing in Austin? Are you in Bombay? Okay.
No, I'm in Chennai.
Chennai, I see. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. Thank you very much.
Actually, I don't know if in the community, everybody knows Paola or not. Maybe Paola, since if people saw the latest Foldscope newsletter, you might have all seen Paola's face. Paola, would you like to introduce yourself? These are some of most of them I can tell are actually Foldscope super users here. It might be fun for you to just briefly introduce yourself.
Yeah, I can quickly introduce myself. Sorry I didn't turn on my camera, but I was listening. I'm Paola. I joined the Foldscope team recently as the Director of Strategic Partnerships. So we definitely want to grow. We appreciate a lot the hard work everyone in the Foldscope Indian community, the super users, are doing. And we are looking forward to more posts in the microcosmos, and just growing there. And hopefully one day I'll meet you all in person, not through Zoom.
And then maybe Paola, could you just briefly talk about your background and just your work in Peru? Because, we are all community organizers first, and then we have some tags. But could you say a word or two about your work in Peru, even before you came to Stanford?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I am originally from Peru in South America, and how I became involved with Foldscope is because I was working with a Peruvian organization that organizes scientific workshops for girls. And I met Manu and I met Jim, and I fell in love with Foldscope, and they gave me some for my girls. So that was amazing. And and one thing that I love about Foldscope is it's more than just an instrument. It is it's the community, and it's like a door that opens your view to this bigger smaller thing, right? The microscopic world. So it's great. Also, when you see the faces in the kids and just that childlike curiosity we all have. We are born scientists, and sometimes, as we grow up, things get harder and we stop cultivating that curiosity. But finances should not be a barrier for us to continue cultivating that curiosity. And that's one of my personal life missions. And it just aligns perfectly with Foldscope's mission. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you all will hear from Paola from time to time, because we're starting to build broader communities and put lots of structural things in places now. So yeah. And I think the time that I met Paola was when she was finishing her PhD at Stanford, and also running a program for kids in Peru, and especially in the context of thinking about getting girls to come every summer for this, the Peru Tech program. And I think, one of the, of course, Foldscope has grown significantly in India and many communities. And I think we have done some amount of work in Latin America, but not at the same scale. And kind of the hope also is that, Paola, you are able to make those connections as well, so that usually these Foldscope live sessions are dominated by Foldscope super users from India. My hope is we get to diversify that further.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
that it's a bad thing. Yes.
Oh, I did have a question that's kind of abstract, but I wanted to hear from a presenter. You are one of, our Foldscope super users. So for you, what would be your dream of where Foldscope would get to as a super user? Or what are things that you're excited about as a super user? Yeah, I'm just curious about what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think.
She's asking for your wish list, Akshata.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what would be amazing is to have Foldscopes, just like you have these, ration shops where you have all these, your essential items, and just like that, you have Foldscopes for every child, you know, because education is something that uh, is not given so much priority, although it really needs to be. And one of the like foundations of education is to have access to science, and so I think if that was that every child will have access to it, that would be amazing.
I wanted to say a few things. Uh, so actually, I did a workshop with teachers from Telangana state, and these were some around 3,000 to 5,000 teachers. So, and they, I mean, I think they understood the usefulness of Foldscope. So now everybody is asking me where can they buy. So right now, I told them W Lab is one option, and then Fundu Lab is also selling through Amazon. But the reach is not everywhere. They don't have. So we need better distribution uh, in India, and I think many other places also. But in India, we need some good mechanism, because whenever somebody asks me, I ask the labs or Fundula people, but mostly they have deluxe kits, and the individual or these basic kits, they whenever they order something, they say, okay, we have some kits, but they are already have been sold, or somebody ordered them in bulk. So I think we need little better distribution in India.
Yeah, I think we need more than little better distribution. We really need a completely new way of thinking about distribution. And so what's on the plate right
Because
now is this.
demand is really high.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think, but also it's a little bit, I think we've been thinking about this problem for a while, and we've tried several sets of approaches, and now is the time to really reinvent, because, just uh, education is having such a dramatic change as well. And I think while we are starting to put together the phase 2 of this program, there is a MOU that's in the process right now, which will involve, I think I'd mentioned this last time, manufacturing in India itself, primarily for that's a start. And the goal is, if that succeeds as a program, that we would replicate that in other countries as well, which have the certain threshold. Um, but even before we do that, we could actually just try implementing several other distribution programs simultaneously, because even if we can manufacture in India, it doesn't mean that the distribution can work, because not everybody has access to going, oh, I'm going to go on Amazon and buy it. I mean, that concept doesn't make
Yeah,
sense in the place that Akshata is describing. So we really have to rethink
exactly.
and ask, what are the channels and networks uh, of true distribution across India, because just manufacturing alone might not solve that. Should this be available in a post office, or should we be thinking about newspapers or something completely different as a distribution channel? Uh, so if people have ideas around entities that they think might be good partners for us, how does stationery get to where it gets to? What are the common brands? I mean, everybody talks about Coke, of course. Coke gets to all parts of the country, but are there equivalent versions of that which would be valuable for us to partner, whether they are entities in education or not, doesn't matter. And I think, well, it could be an experiment in India that could then be replicated at other places, because it is still, even if we manufacture, we really have to ask. And I think this is why the government programs are very important, because they have a reach that many other entities don't. Whether that's through their natural programs, whether that's through other essential items. I think I loved what you said, Akshata, about essential items. Science should be an essential item. Like, you could go to the Russian place and get kerosene oil. Could you get stationery? Could you get pens? And could you get Foldscopes? Yeah.
I think here I would also like to add that the approach, I mean, one is quite centralized, like, with the government bodies, and the other approach essentially should be also decentralized and more localized, because centrally you have this power of of a huge network, but with my own personal experience, what happens is in the local areas, that kind of that kind of will or commitment to actually deliver it well to the community is not so well in centralized institutions. So you probably should find more collaborators on local level, maybe NGOs, maybe individuals who are who have a hold in that local area, and then have an outreach.
Yeah, maybe this is a quiz or sort of a puzzle for all of you who, the Foldscope super users in India. If you guys collect together a few sets of ideas and share with us, because that would be really valuable. We have lots of contacts and connections and thinking about the centralized approach, but it would be very valuable to think about what are the other organizations that we are completely missing right now. Because, as we say, cost is only one barrier to access. Just the physical transport of an object somewhere, or even just the fact that people don't even know about it. Just the fact that if you don't know about it, you'd never look for it. It would be very valuable to think about this decentralized idea. And I think that really has to come from all of you, because we can sit from far away and we can imagine, but India is changing so dramatically. Just, I imagine all these Reliance gas stations everywhere. Is that true? I don't know. It's like,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Manu, actually, the other thing we wanted to discuss. So, four of us, Mo.
And actually, just before Rafik, you say that, Alok made a really wonderful point about polio eradication drive, which is based on, and I know for polio eradication, I think it runs through an NGO, the Rotary International, and they have a reach which is remarkable. So it's very interesting, because we had conversations with the head of the Rotary International in the US, and they were extremely interested. But it's a purely distributed organization. There's actually no centralized entity. So I just want to acknowledge, that's a fantastic suggestion, Alok. Go ahead, Rafik.
Yeah. So we were thinking that now in COVID time, the education has changed a lot, and in India it's a multifold problem, because of I think in previous few calls also we discussed that going just online won't solve the problem, because everybody doesn't have access to doesn't have resources to actually then online. And in the same time, we were doing all these workshops. We were going to schools along with DBT, which has also stopped. So our activity of mentors and supervisors have now got limited to just these workshops. So now we wanted to have one meeting and try to think that how can we actually continue our work during in these strange circumstances. And also we need to actually see, there are a lot of opportunities here because we always wanted some change in education. And in this, in troubled times, we have this opportunity to uh, uh, put in what we wanted to, or just like a Trojan horse, bring those changes into education.
Yeah, actually,
So,
maybe Rafiq, I know there are a few teachers on this call, and especially, I mean, Amy, I want to bounce this off of you. What has changed for you during COVID time in education? What have you been able to do that's unique, and what has been challenging? I'm just curious how have other people handled this currently? I don't know, Amy, if you want to comment, or anybody else for that matter, because one thing that's valuable is some things have worked, but yeah, you're absolutely right, Rafiq. Just, say that everybody should have a computer and come online. I mean, that's just it's a very hypothetical idea. So Amy, do you want to comment on that?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, and maybe you could also just introduce yourself just as a one-liner. Some people know you, but some people might not.
My name is Amy Downs, and I'm a teacher in the Central Valley of California. And I teach at a charter school. And I think for us, one of the big things that is impacting us is just access to the internet and devices, because our school is going to be all distance learning starting in August. And I think just teacher training and then just transitioning, because when we went, our school closed in March, there was a equity and access, so that's the biggest thing for us.
And then I guess there is no real solution for this in terms of currently it is mandated to be distance learning, whether the kids have access to laptops and internet or not.
Well, they started working on an infrastructure for internet access and cataloging all of our devices so that they could go Apple starts this next year. So they trainings that'll be starting, I think, broadly in the next week or so. So there's a lot of things going on in the background right now, but it's going to be a big change for our community.
Mm-hmm. Any other ideas people want to share on the education front in COVID that could be piggybacked upon? I'm wondering whether there are cell phone lending programs in India right now for students. I mean, this screen is pretty small, but it's still there. Something is there. And are there entities popping up that, hey, you can take your classes on your phone? Or I'm just wondering, other new business models and business opportunities that might have come about. Are there services that are being provided in India or other places for that matter?
Yeah. Can I comment on
Absolutely.
this?
Yeah. And then could you just also introduce yourself?
Sure.
Vishwajit?
So yeah, I am my name is Vishwajit Paul, and I'm an assistant professor in chemistry department in Bangalore University. I mean, I have been following your work for a long time when I was in US as well, regarding development of Foldscope and then launching of beta versions and then testing it out and all. And I've been interested, and for that reason only I joined it. And then, I joined a little bit late and the discussion was going on. So I have a couple of comments and suggestions, not a questions as such. So in India, there are, two things goes round the year. One is exam, the other is election. And unfortunately, in both the cases, we become party. So for example, I have been doing election duty as running the booths and all. And as you know, the election has a lot of important materials to carry in a decentralized fashion in a very nook and corner of the country. And at the same time, bring it back. Okay. So the government has the mechanism, it's not that they don't have the mechanism. And if you also look from the exam side, they have this very good mechanism of distributing question papers across India in a much more confidential way. So in a way, what I'm trying to tell you is that, both the strategies are already in place in India. The question is, do we have the policy and the will to go forward with it? And
I mean, that's just absolutely brilliant as a suggestion, because
so
that really
I'm pretty
speaks
sure
for-
you have it. You have it to distribute Foldscope. Somebody in the participants also talks about this healthcare sector where the vaccines are distributed in the polio kind of cases, and this polio as it is eradicated, and there are healthcare workers dedicated to do all that. But exams and elections are seasonal, periodic, and whatever way you can look at it. We have exams and elections going on throughout the year. You take any Sunday, there is some exams going on. You take any month, there are some elections going on. So the question is, do you want to really do it? Because the government wants to enforce election to be carried out in a panchayat level, for example, in a very remotest of corner, and they get it done. So the question is, they have the will and they have the power and they do it. Whether the same kind of coercion can be done also in the Foldscope level or not, and I don't know. And regarding your second discussion about this, the involvement of the students to go to completely online mode from the offline teaching that we are all familiar with, this chalk talk kind of teaching, which I am doing it right now. And we are actually now doing it for last 3 to 4 months with all this smartphone. And there is a clear digital divide in our country. In a place like Bangalore also, we serve a niche people in our university. With 80 to 90% of the populations are from the Karnataka. But there are still 10 to 20% outside the Karnataka who has gone back to their home and might not have access and whatnot. Okay, so there are still 20 to 30% of the people out of the network. But coming back to the way right now, what is happening is that at least in the central level, they have started with a platform called Moodle, where they are incorporating this learning management system, LMS kind of a tool, which allows you to have students integrated to it so that you can have your notes, have your study materials, have their attendance, and at least the internal assessment done, rather than the mass way of conducting exams, which is happening in our country, when it was the offline mode was going on. So some initiatives has been going on, but I don't know down the line whether that can be implemented, because in a country like ours, we have the short-term planning with no long-term thinking down the road. We simply implement something, and then when the COVID and everything goes away, we back to square one and we just start from zero again. So every time the government does many things from their own, but it does not really percolate down this trickle down concepts of economics, doesn't really work in every sector in our country, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about India centric, but it might not be true in other countries, as I know.
Yeah, no, those are some fantastic suggestions.
I mean,
you also reminded me, I wonder if anything has been done in the television space. Lots of people have access to television, and Doordarshan should just become
No,
to become
they
a
are. They are
classroom.
doing it.
I mean, they
They
could
are
do that.
doing
I
it.
mean, maybe they're
Yes.
possibly doing that because there are more people
Right.
who have access to Doordarshan than internet, for
True.
example.
I mean, you're right on. But again, they are serving the high school and the primary school level students, not the higher education.
Yeah.
Not the higher education. Because the number of, as you know, it's a top-down approach with the higher education sector having only few number of students versus the crores of students or the millions of students in the primary and the high school level. So government is more focused on the bottom of the pyramid, but at the top of the pyramids are sort of like, left it on their own. You figure it out, or you just leave it.
Yeah, but on the other hand, just for the bottom of the pyramid, I wonder if any of the Foldscope super users want to figure out who is in charge of making these television programs for education. And maybe it might actually be a very valuable avenue to not just have rote learning in that perspective, but bring some of these types of experiences. I mean, what you did, Akshata, I mean, that was just amazing. And there is that sense of wonder in that I don't know how many TV programs have, and how do we make sure that this type of content actually becomes accessible. And it would be phenomenal to actually reach out who is responsible and in charge, even for primary education, but with a capacity to distribute it very widely.
Yeah. So actually, this is a really nice. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Yeah. So each state has a program because they have declared that this semester will be all distance learning. So in my state, in Maharashtra, government has announced a program called Tilimili, and they have also announced the schedule. So it starts. It will be on Doordarshan, and it started on 20th July. So you can. I'll send some links to some of the episodes which have been already aired. So it's a 30-minute, 30 to 35-minute session for each class, each grade. So grade 1 to grade 8, and they are. So these are kind of videos aired on local Doordarshan, so Marathi Doordarshan channel. But similarly, I know some teachers who have been doing it in Telangana. So I think each state, because the education is a state subject, each state has its own way of approach. And I think this is a really nice suggestion that we should try and find out who's responsible for this. So for example, for Maharashtra, I'm in touch with these people who are actually making these videos. And I'm hoping that I'll be part of the science, the team which will be making the episodes for science. But I think we should also find out for other states. And so, for example, Akshata and Mo should see if in Tamil Nadu or in Karnataka there are these such because they are looking for people. They are looking for people who can actually make lesson plans and sessions in this mode, where students are watching at home and they can use their environment as a resource. And your video is just a starting point for some exploration.
Yeah, no, I think this would be a really valuable thing that we should explore, because suddenly equity becomes a big issue. And I think, yeah, this is true that television is far more accessible. Yeah. It's already 11:40. So I guess, yeah, we should give people a chance. It's pretty late on our end of the California time. Anybody else wanted to make a last minute comment? I think we usually do this in our sessions where we start with a very formal talk and it digresses into wherever it goes, into wonderful conversations. So that's exactly what happened. Anybody wants to make a last minute comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Akshata. This is perfect. You should close the session. We just want to thank you for doing this. It was absolutely amazing. But yeah, you should say some closing thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, actually, Sudeshji and even Alok have pointed out about like home mobile shops, and getting even like Alok has pointed out how people use WhatsApp to send videos. So it's quite true. Even in the places I've worked in, although the most tribal areas, they just had like basic phones and not smartphones, but in few other areas which is close by, they also, there was more access to smartphones as well. So, and people just love taking photos and sharing videos and all that. Even so, they don't mind. Like data is a constraint, but still, if we can have that will of bringing low data videos and things that we can share in such a network, that would also be a very good idea to have, circulate information and videos like that. So I think we can wind up here then.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a very good talk. And we also have it recorded, so other people can see it even after today. And if you missed the beginning, if you joined late, then you can go and see it online once I post it.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank
or
you.
Good morning for most of you.
Thank
Awesome
you.
job. Bye.
Good morning.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.